So this is my new parallelogram mount. This is my homemade 3D printed binocular mount. And what I'm going to do to show you in this video is how I made it and how you can go and make your own version as well. Now this only cost me about £70, which looking at the exchange rate today is about $90, about 80 euros. So this is a really affordable mount, and I've designed it so that it is as light as possible. The whole mount itself, obviously ignoring the tripod, binoculars, counterweight, the mount itself only weighs about 1.5 kilos. So welcome to the Refreshing Views Observatory. My name is Mark Radici, and I have a real passion for sharing the night sky, showing the views through my telescopes. And obviously when you're using a telescope to explore the night sky, you're getting a sort of a high magnification, a close-up view of these beautiful celestial objects. Now when you're using a pair of binoculars, you've gone the other way. You've gone for a low power but very wide angle field of view, and it's great fun using something binoculars, scanning the Milky Way, exploring craters on the moon, looking at moons going around Jupiter. And the beauty of this is I can be sitting on my comfortable chair in the garden, in the backyard, and I can put these binoculars wherever I want to look in the sky, so I can have them at just the right height, and I can look left and right as well. Let's tilt them up and down, and I am in complete comfort. And the beauty of the binoculars on the parallelogram mount is because they're mounted off to one side, you can point them vertically and you can still get your eyes to the eyepiece even when looking high up to the zenith. So you can observe now sitting down in complete comfort. And by having the counterweight on the back means you can put this at the perfect heights no matter what you want to look at. Now all the build files, all the 3D printing files and the build instructions are up on my website. I'll put a link down below. There's a link in the description as well. So you can build this yourself. Feel free to use those designs. Feel free to adapt them how you wish. And if you haven't got a 3D printer, then by all means feel free to use the designs, make them out of whatever you want. So what I'm going to do now is talk you through how these are built. So the printer's going to be pretty busy. You're going to print off all these parts. I printed mine in black and white just to give it that sort of stormtrooper sort of appearance, but really whatever colour you choose, that's up to you. So the first thing you've got to do is get everything printed, get all the plastic parts printed, and I used PETG. I'm not too sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but anyway, it's a plastic, it's a commercially available plastic, and the beauty of that over the more traditional PLA, which is the normal cheaper sort of plastic, is that this will withstand being in a hot car on a hot day. This won't deform. I've printed stuff before in PLA, and then when I've left it in the car, hot sunny day, the plastics then deform. So I've printed all of this in PETG. If that's not a requirement for you, then just go for the ordinary PLA. I've also ordered all the stainless steel parts. Again, you've got a link to those for what I've ordered as well. And the other thing as well, I found it quite hard to find sort of affordable thumb screws. So I simply bought ordinary nuts and fasteners and then printed my own thumb screws. Again, you can choose whether to go and buy your own, get some injection molded parts, or just print your own using the fasteners that come with the kits. That's up to you. So the first thing we've got to do is put together the plinth. Now, everyone laughed at me in my original description because I said everything is metric and then said use a 3/8 camera thread. That's a standard sort of camera thread. That's the thread that goes at the top of a standard camera tripod. So that's why it has to be a 3/8 camera thread. Glue that into the base of the plinth, and at the same time glue in the M8x50 bolt. Glue that in as well, and then glue the two parts together. Press fits the nuts in there, and we'll do the same there we go. Messy, there we go. And then the last thing we're going to do then is put some epoxy on here. And so what we've got here is we've got those 4 little knobbly bits, and then they have holes that stick in. So let's get that in. And And when that's dried, when that's cured, you'll then have this piece. So we can screw that to the camera tripod, and then the arms will go on top of here. While that's drying, I then glued this up together as well. So I printed the arms, printed these sort of buttresses, these ribs on the side, and then printed the plinth as well, and then glued those all together. Ready? Getting at the edge. Nice little bits. Nicely spread out. I'm going to put the nut through. There's the wet epoxy side. Put that together, and this will hold it all together while the glue dries, while the epoxy dries. Someone who's a better designer than me will probably come up with a more elegant way of printing this. The other thing to be aware of as well is I didn't print it in sort of the vertical configuration, or as you're looking at it like that. I didn't print it that way. I actually printed it with the arms on the side, so that's all layered up like that. That means that when you're like this, there's less chance of it. There's less chance of it deforming. So that's printed on the side. Those are all printed correctly, and then literally just epoxy all these parts together as well. So once that's all cured, you've then got a plinth piece, and we've then got a base piece. So the other thing we must do is put some M6 holes, M6.5 holes in the tubing. Now key to this is making sure that these are straight. These must be parallel. So what I did is put them together with these, and basically we can use this as a tool, drill through there, and then by keeping that locked in position with the bolt, we can then use that as a template to then drill through that one as well. So use the end pieces as a template for doing that. Be careful as well, this can give you some sharp edges, so make sure you deburr the edges, make sure they're all nice and smooth as well, so you can run your finger along them without actually cutting yourself. So make sure you remove all the soft edges, make sure you remove all the sharp edges from the soft aluminum. The other thing I've done is I haven't really thought about it yet, but it's coming up with a better sort of counterweight system. So I've actually epoxied a hook into the end of this, and then that literally can hang a counterweight on the back. There's probably a more elegant solution, but it seems to work pretty well. Right, let's put all this together. So that's our plinth part with the 3/8 camera thread and with the M8x50 bolt. That's our arms, our lower arms piece, and that's all been glued together as well. So that's actually really rigid. It's hard. I could probably force it if I tried to, but there's no need to. So that literally slots on top like so. So that all goes together. Where are you? There we are. So that literally just rides on top. So I can screw that onto the tripod, and then we'll put a fastener on top of there. Now I've actually put a larger penny washer in there, smaller washer, and then I put a split washer in, so one of those, you know, sort of thin split washers, and that just makes sure it locks in position. It doesn't slowly undo itself with time. Put another washer on top of that, and then that's just a larger M8 nut epoxied into place, and then that can go on like that. Obviously it's quite hard to do this up with just an ordinary nut, and you don't want to take a spanner out with you, a wrench out with you. So that goes on there, make sure that's nice and tight. And there we have it, we can now rotate. And there we have it, we can now rotate that together. That's all held together, so that's not going to come apart. So let's put that to one side over there. Let's start putting the arms together. And I always have to think about this, it's a bit tricky to put all this together. So these are the upper arms, the smaller 300mm length. So that fits together like so. And that's the counterweight slider one. I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. So does that go like that? Ah, that's it, isn't it? And that goes through like so. That's going to go into there. Have I got that right? Yes, and that goes into there. And I've just made my first mistake. So this is the counterweight sliding thing. This can go up and down together, so you can adjust how long your arm is by sliding it. But to lock it into position, I've got one of these little nylon tipped nuts, which looks like it's nylon, is well and truly squidged. So what I've done is I put an M6 slot in here, and that just goes into that part there. So the M6 is in there, and then you can then just put a screw that thumb screw on, and at least that holds it into position. So we'll then pass that through, past the nut into that piece, and then because that's closed it can't go any further, but now we can then slide our counterweight back and forth. And that piece must go on there. So that's our arms all together. So what we need to do then is get the lower arms, put that like so. I tell you what, if I put the arms sideways you can see what I'm doing. So that's a version 2 update. So I need to put let's put you down, grab those. So those got a washer on the end. That's the M6 by 110mm. That goes through there. And now I've got to try and line up the holes, which is always tricky. So just trying to, where's the hole gone? There it is. Somewhere there it goes. So work that through, that's now in place. And we're going to do the same again with this one. I just need to line that up so I can see the holes. There it is. Grab the long M6 bolt, and that should work its way through with a bit of a wiggle and a push. Why is it not going through? That should do. It's in there somewhere. There we are. So the arms are going to go up and down. So the arms can go up and down together. They're the same distance apart. Let's just quickly put the nuts, the washers and the nuts on the other side. So again, that's just an M6 stainless steel nut, and I've just put that in my own 3D printed wing nut. What do you call it? Thumb screw. If I turn that around, then you can see what I'm doing. So that's the M6 stainless steel penny washer. As I drop it, so M6 penny washer goes on like so, and the thumb screw on top. Just tighten them up, get little bit of stiffness in there. Perfect. So that can now go up and down together. So what we're going to do is do the same at this end. So this is the binocular pivot point. So that's where it all rotates about. So that's going to go on there. So this one obviously doesn't need a washer. Let me just push that down there. So this one obviously doesn't need a washer because it's already got the holes in the right place. They're sort of designed into the plastic. So again, line up the holes, there she goes through, and then a little push to embed it in the plastic. Same again with this one, line up the holes. Make sure that's all nice, there she goes, and then push her through. There we are, right. So as we did before, put the washers on, put the washers on, and then put the thumb screws on. Excellent, so that's all coming together. Oh, I've just noticed something I haven't done. To stop this falling out of the fastener, I have another little nut that I put into there. I did think about sort of epoxying all this into place. I'm a little bit reluctant because once you've epoxied it, you can never get it back out again. So I haven't yet, but I may well do. And the other thing I was reading somewhere else was that you can paint all the plastic parts in epoxy. If you give it a skin of epoxy, that makes it much more robust as well. That gets into all the little cracks and all the little voids and makes it a much more robust structure. But again, not something I've got round to yet. So you can see there now we've got our parallelogram shape. What we need to do is put the binocular mount on. Now, before you assemble this, you've got to put the M8 nut through. So that needs to go, so the M8 bolt. So before you assemble this, put the M8 bolt in first so that you can get that on like that. If you don't do that, you can't, there's not enough space in there to put the bolt through. Then we'll get the longer part, and I like putting it this way round so you don't get to see the thing. Right, so let's turn you that way, line up the holes again, there she goes, and then pass the nut through. It's in there somewhere, there she goes, and again last little push. So there we have it. So that does the hinging, and then this piece does the up and down. And again, there's different holes there depending on how big your binoculars are. You can then adjust that to position them best for you. So with my binoculars, I'm just putting it on the lowest one and the middle one there. So I'll pass that through like so. Grab a, oops, throw them on the floor, a thumb screw and a washer. Put that the right way around. And remember, of course, these are the M8 version as well, so they're bigger than the M6 version. And that just gives it a little bit more rigidity. So that's now on there like that. That now gives us that up-down motion. And stretch across again. And that one does the same, but with the hinge. And I put that the wrong way around again. So that goes, the M8 thumb screw goes on there. And there we have it, one completed parallelogram assembly. The other thing to mention, yes, I think I've mentioned this before, but yeah, I've put the little hook on the end. That's what you can carry your, that's what I use to put my carabiner and the weights on, so that just hooks on there. I have noticed that that's the right diameter a 1-inch dumbbell will actually fit on. and maybe some sort of, I don't know, cable tie or sliding mechanism, that would also work on there. But to be honest with you, I found that to be fairly simple. If I just tighten that up, make sure everything's nice and tight, not too tight, but just the right tightness. The other thing you'll need as well is a binocular mounting thread. Where have I put my binoculars? There they are. And on my binoculars, there's a little hole in the bottom. So that goes through like so. And there it is. So with the counterweight on that end, the binoculars at that end, we are now set up. Now some binoculars, they have a camera thread at the front in the eyepiece there, and it's under a little plastic cap. So have a look at some of those if you haven't got a thread at the bottom, and then you'll need to buy these. These aren't very expensive as well, but make sure you get an aluminium and aluminum one, a metal one. Don't get the plastic ones, they're a little bit more fragile. And then that screws into the front and then through the camera, through the parallelogram part there as well. So 1/4x20 camera thread, make sure it's a long bolt as well so it can go through that. That came with an old pair of binoculars or a mount or something. And then get one of those as well, one of those sort of binocular bracket parts as well, if your binoculars doesn't have a bottom thread. There we go. Right, let's go and do some observing then. In the meantime, I must say thank you. I now have 2 Patreon accounts, so thank you very much to my Patreons for your continued support, and we look forward to bringing you more videos as we explore the night sky.